What's going on, YouTube? Randy from Modified Motorsports. I'm here with another video, basically talking about my previous video that I ended up talking about the dislikes of my Civic Si. It's a 2018 10th gen, and I had a lot of gripes about this car because of all the things that I'm normally used to coming from a 2015 Subaru STI. This car, I am by no means saying it's a bad car, it sucks. I'm just griping merely because I'm used to a more aggressive performance car coming from the Subaru STI, and I have a lot of things to live up to as far as, performance wise, the daily driving aspect of the STI compared to the SI. And by no means are they the same. I'm not comparing the two because Type R is really where the category of the Subaru Challenger is. So I understand that there's two different categories of the vehicle, but what I'm coming from an STI coming to this SI, it's a big difference. As far as one of the gripes that I was talking about, my clutch being horrible, I still have that issue. The previous day, maybe last week, I had quite a bit of tools in my trunk, and I think I spoke about this in the previous video too. And I had some passengers, and the car, the clutch was literally slipping throughout most of the drive coming from on and off traffic, and that's unacceptable. I mean, if you're going to design a car that's going to possibly do the average daily things, if it has 5 passengers in it that are possibly heavier, then it should be able to hold that type of torque capacity. So that's one of my big gripes. I have addressed a couple of other issues. One of them being no USB ports in the back. So I did add them. There is going to be a video coming soon of that. And I have them installed now here. They glow right now. I just turned them off, but there's a tutorial that's going to come up with that coming soon. I still have my issues with the HIDs in the sense of beams coming from the headlights. I still haven't taken care of that. I'm trying to diagnose something with that. And I was talking about wheel gap, and I've addressed that. As you can see, I have some Skunk 2 lowering springs in there for time being. I don't like them. I'm probably going to switch them out to something a little less aggressive. The ride is pretty stiff, and I hear chatter coming from the springs, and it's mostly because the design, and you can kind of hear it. I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but the design of the spring is kind of mediocre. I'm not saying that the company sucks, but it's just not a high-end quality lowering spring. So that got addressed. I'm still waiting on the spoiler or the trunk. I've called several places to try to get a new trunk. I think what's going to end up happening is I'm just going to end up buying the original trunk from Honda. They're about like $300. I'm going to try to see if I can swindle the dealer to see if he'll hook me up with a good price. But I have the Type R wing, as I said. It's in one of my other videos. And that's going to get installed. Let me talk about some of the things that I actually do like about this car. Number one, the miles per gallon on this thing is awesome. I assume you would know that it's because it's a 1.5 liter, and being that when you're not thrusting the turbo, you're getting great gas mileage on a small motor. Yet it's still efficient as well. The turbo on this thing is pretty adequate for what it does. I mean, I pretty much hit full boost at somewhere around like 3,400 RPMs, 3,500, which is pretty premature. And to me, that's an awesome thing. I figured I'd talk about a few things that I actually like in this car versus talking about the things I disliked, since the other video had so much negativity. I figured I'd follow up with a couple things that I actually do like of this car. I love the electronics in this car. The fact that you have so many things at the disposal of your dash to change is freaking awesome. If you own this car, you already know how many cool little things you can achieve with just going through some of the menu features. I'll probably never use the time attack stopwatch. I'll probably never use the centrifugal force gauge for the amount of G-force that's pulled in this car. I'll never use that, but it's kind of cool little things that are there. The boost gauge is not too bad. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but I still don't know what that piece is. Let me get that back up. If you know, comment below. But what the hell does this do? That's what I'm trying to find out. I thought it was a boost gauge, but then I actually tried to get into it, and it's not the boost gauge. I might have that backwards. One of them's the boost gauge or throttle response, I believe. I don't really remember. I believe that one was the boost gauge. Let me close my door. It's bothering the hell out of me. I believe that one's the boost gauge or throttle response, but I don't know what the hell this one does. If you do know, comment below. I have no idea. I've never even seen it work to my knowledge. I don't really pay attention to it that much, but I don't know what it does. As far as the overall access to getting to all your electronics, I believe it's awesome. The one thing I did have to find out after kind of squealing with the radio is the volume control, and that you just push it up or push it down with your finger, and you can get down faster with your volume. I thought that was kind of cool after trying to fiddle around with it for the longest time. I thought you had to literally like press the button every time. In reality, you can just use your finger to bring it down really quickly. Going from the steering wheel controls to figuring that out actually helped out a lot, especially when I'm at like Jack in the Box or whatever and you're trying to put the volume down really quickly. The parking brake, that's something you really have to get used to, but the brake hold is fantastic. This is probably the most awesome thing that you can have, because unlike the Subaru, I was never able to disable it. It either worked and it fucked with you, or it didn't work and your car was rolling back. Subaru's brake assist is actually not horrible, but there were some finicky parts that I was left on, depending on how I creeped up on the hill. That kind of left me with like a little bit of anger when I was driving with the Subaru. As far as on the hills, it does have hill assist, do not get me wrong, but sometimes it was finicky as far as what hills I was on and how it was creeping up the hill. If I was like creeping up a little bit and then stopped, sometimes it wouldn't have the ability to, I guess, engage or whatever the computer wasn't recognizing, and it would still allow the car to fall backwards. This, when you brake and you stop, no matter where you are in the hill, whether you're creeping or not, it'll still stop. It'll hold the vehicle, which is awesome. The sport mode on this thing, honestly, I could do without it. I mean, you can feel the electronic steering stiffen up, which is kind of cool. But other than that, the active dampening is not really that big of a deal to me. I mean, to be honest, later on in life, I might end up doing coilovers and just bypassing it with the HKS, controller or whatever, the bypass. I kind of don't like the active assist, but for someone that's never had a sports vehicle, it's kind of cool, I guess, that it stiffens up and you can kind of feel the difference. As far as the sway, no matter whether or not the vehicle's in sport mode or not, it still has a pretty heavy toll on sway. As far as I don't know how to explain it. Someone help me out when in the comments. But it doesn't really handle in the turns that much better in sport mode than it does in normal mode. I'm sorry for the bad camera. That's kind of one of my gripes as far as the physical performance, that it could use a little bit more stiffening in either the sway bars, sway links, whatever it may be in the dynamics of the suspension, that this could help a little bit more in the dynamics of turning. So, what else was there an issue with? I believe I've addressed everything. Oh, no, I haven't. So, in the previous video, I was talking about there not being a spare tire. So, I ended up getting a spare tire from somebody, and it does not fit. Why? Because these calipers are actually pretty decent sized. And from what I thought, they were just regular, Civic, EX, all of them the same. Well, turns out being that these calipers are actually bigger than the EX. So they do have a little better stopping power. These brakes are actually not too bad. As they heat up, they actually get a little bit better. I haven't actually had too many problems with them. They do have a little bit of squeak when they're cold, but I mean, not nearly as bad as the STI that I'm used to. Once they ended up wearing the pads on the STI were horrendously noisy. I think that was pretty much it. This car definitely could use a little more horsepower. That's what's coming next. As soon as I get some of the physical aspects of this car taken care of, and then I probably want to tackle some modifications to maybe the exhaust and stuff. That's coming a little bit later. Those are pretty expensive. This car still is fairly new, and some of the parts on this thing are very expensive. The exhaust on this is approximately $800, which is kind of common with the STI Type R range. I don't know if the SI should necessarily fall in that category as far as the expensive parts. Some of the suspension parts are just as expensive, which kind of is mind-boggling to me, being that, usually the Honda world is pretty cheap because the demand is high. Well, these things are still pretty expensive. So I kind of think that they're a little overpriced at the moment, but as everything, once the vehicle gets older, the parts get cheaper. However, I kind of don't want to wait till that long to modify this thing, so you just got to do with what you got to do. And one last thing. This hood is crazy heavy. I don't know if you've ever opened your hood, but I'd say this hood is probably in the realm of 70 pounds, 80 pounds. It's extremely heavy for no reason. Type R, extremely light. I know I know it's bad for me to continuously repeat myself and compare the two vehicles because they're completely different price ranges, and it's a different spectrum, but this thing is extremely heavy compared to any car that I've ever owned. I mean, even the WRX has a lightened hood compared to this thing. And this is in the same category as the WRX. In fact, this is basically WRX competitor. When you buy the Subaru WRX, this is basically what you're competing against, except the horsepower is completely off. We're looking at, 265 for a WRX. This thing is 205. The torque is still completely different as well. But I'm pretty sure just by taking that hood off, doing a carbon fiber hood, which I'll probably end up doing sometime in the next few months, that by itself would save at least like 40 pounds of weight. So that might be something that's coming in the future as well pretty soon. Well, I'm done griping about things. This was mostly a video, like I said earlier, about response to the first video, because I knew a lot of people were talking about how I should just get a completely different car if I don't like this car. Well, it's not that. It's not that I don't like the car. The car's pretty awesome, but it could be a lot better. And I think the fact that the 2019s were actually addressed to some of this, I believe the 2019 actually comes with the spare tire. Don't quote me on that. But they did do a couple of upgrades. I know that they're probably paying attention to the clutch, because that was a big concern for all of us from 16 to 18. And the fact that a lot of people were complaining about it probably leads me to believe that the 19s have a better clutch system in it. I guess we'll find out in the near future. Like, subscribe. There's a lot more content that I'm going to be posting up. Right now, I'm kind of in the middle of a transition for moving, so there's going to be a lot more stuff coming up and tutorials that are be coming in this vehicle. Also, I have a comparison that's going to be coming soon. I have a Type R, a buddy with one. He's going to kind of give the ups and downs about his Type R and what he thinks is cool, what he doesn't like, and also a comparison between the SI and the Type R, even though they're two completely, totally different cars. But at least you'll be able to compare one versus the other in the world of, performance and preference. So stay tuned and subscribe. I can't thank you guys enough for at least commenting on the videos that I previously made. It kind of helps me gauge what needs to be addressed, and it'll help me with my future videos. I know my video quality isn't the greatest, but that's something that's going to be coming soon as I get more likes, subscribes, and new followers.